what concrete things have you done to break the back of inflation, as you said in last night's debate during your time the past few years?
Well, first thing is to reduce the overall spending in trend. And so in Chris Christie's first year, we took control of the budget. And from when I was in the minority party, every single Republican member of the state Senate voted for that budget, even though we were in the minority, because we realized that the Democratic majority was choosing not to run the budget. And in fact, Tony Bucco was the prime sponsor of that first budget bill. So think about that. That would be the equivalent in this day and age of either Chuck Schumer handing it off to Mitch McConnell, or in reverse, the reverse is true. And we did, and then we had 6 additional members of the Democratic Party I think we were 16, and so that budget. When Corzine left that year, he said there was going to be a $400 to $500 million surplus, and ended up being over a $2 billion deficit. And so that's one thing. Number 2, there are many new tax increases, whether they were on income taxes or corporate business taxes, that I was able to block. New spending programs that I was able to block in the state legislature, including, for example, there was a corporate business tax that was going to, when it was passed originally through the state legislature, they said it was going to be a $1.5 billion tax increase. That was actually untrue. It was really going to be about $8.5 billion increase, and they had to come back and change it. But I was the first, so I first was able to focus on that and then change that back. And then, as well as, I'm happy to send you and then I also, on Chris Christie's second budget, it was proposed with tax increases, and I opposed those tax increases that were not in the final budget. And also, I'm happy to walk through very specific cases.
What about moving forward on inflation? What do you think should be done?
Well, we have to.
On the federal level?
Well, first of all, you've got to cut the overall rate of spending. As we discussed from the forum yesterday, the absolutely partisan spending out of Washington, D.C. that is turbocharging this, and it's irresponsible. So I think there are a couple things. You've got to look at, as I have, when I've winnowed down budgets, and with that experience, going through each of these line items. I wouldn't, the first thing is not, Tom Malinowski's a predictable vote in the House Democratic caucus. He's a backbencher that Nancy Pelosi knows with 100% certainty that he's going to vote for whatever bill is put in front of him. He voted with her 100% of the time. So as a result, you can't have that expectation created. He votes for bills and says he's going to vote for them before he even reads the bills. So having been a legislator, having written legislation, having examined legislation, first thing is stop some of the irresponsible. First thing you could talk about is the 87 or 85,000 new IRS agents, and that's more than MetLife Stadium. Think about that. MetLife Stadium full of IRS agents permanently being employed, right? That's a staggering increase in size and scope of government. Secondly, you would look at the funding for projects, whether they be golf courses or hotels or ski slopes, as they were included in the federal spending bill. And I'll use my past experience to winnow down that type of spending.
Would you have supported the infrastructure bill?
Yes, I was clear about that last cycle when I was running, and I was clear about that this cycle. But that's a different bill. That's not the 3 COVID-related bills that were put through that exploded government spending in disaster. And he was, my opponent was warned with frequency that it would increase the gas prices, it would increase it would do nothing to solve the supply chain issues, it would increase the rate of inflation. And as a result now, his direct action, for which he's absolutely unapologetic, yesterday, he's directly responsible for the inflation that he is directly causing. That's a very different bill, thought process than the original PPP bill that passed with, I think, all but 9 members of the House, I think it was 5 Democrats and 4 Republicans or something like that on the PPP bill. And that was a bill that was put through, passed with a Republican president, Republican Senate, and Democratic House. But that was the type of legislation that solved the immediate problem. And when I looked at things I did in the state legislature, for example, as the pandemic was impacting us, it was making sure there was telehealth, making sure that the people who were volunteering their time or helping out in their hospitals were having could actually do their jobs safely. Made sure that we had education, going through, and from an online perspective, in every single city, in every single suburb. Secondly, when that was, I helped, as the pandemic was coming on, to focus on structural ways and say this is the better way to shut down the government. But then as we were opening it back up, I was very clear about how the president kept the mandates on. Excuse me, the governor kept the mandates on for way too long. We lost education, years of education that are very difficult to get back. We have to have more. We've said this is how you open up the child care centers. This is how you open up the businesses. This is how you open up the schools. This is how you open up the colleges. And we sent it with, and the one thing I thought was important was that we sent it with every single member of the Senate Republican caucus. Sent a letter to the governor with on a weekly basis. Here's a better way to move that forward. So I would use that thought process of unity of purpose down there, down in DC.
So looking forward to Washington.